I'm going to introduce, actually, Laurel's going to introduce herself. Mrs. Laurel Black.
Yes, on my long overdue classification talk. Thank you all for showing up to hear it. I think it's been about 15 or 16 years, but I can't remember. Anyway, I'll start with a quick overview of my family. I'm married to Joe Murray, who is a consulting forester, and between us, we have 4 children. 3 of them live with their partners in Seattle, and the 4th one lives in Port Ludlow. The oldest son and his wife just had twins last week, and we are all relieved that everything went well and they are all doing fine. And what with COVID, I hope to meet them before they start kindergarten. I thought I would share a little about both living on the Olympic Peninsula and how I started my business, since the two are very intertwined. And also, I reached my 40th business anniversary this summer of being continuously in business on the Olympic Peninsula, which I'm proud of, considering I started from ground zero. My early life, I was born and raised in Glendale, which is a suburb of Los Angeles. I went to the University of California at Long Beach, where I got a BA in drawing and painting. And then I went to grad school at the University of Oregon, earning an MFA in printmaking. And I'm proud to say I never once attended any of their football games. So shortly after graduating, I met my future first husband, Bill, who had an equally arcane English lit degree. And we had both had the intention of teaching at the university level, but the recession of the mid-70s put a stop to that because art department and humanities budgets had been slashed and there was no jobs. So we worked at low-wage gigs in Eugene for a couple of years and then decided to move to Washington. We decided we would live on the Olympic Peninsula for the summer of 1978, and then we figured we'd have to move to Seattle and get real jobs. And we were invited to live on some friends' land in Sequim, and we thought it would be great fun to live in a teepee, even though I had never been I had never been camping in my life, and so I had no idea what I was getting into. But one of my personal mottos is, hey, it seemed like a good idea at the time, which was pretty common for people that age back then. And it proved to be great fun, and we ended up staying past the summer because Bill got a job on a local construction crew, and I got one working 3 days a week in Seattle at a design studio, and we continued to live in the teepee. And I commuted back and forth, and I stayed at a friend's house during the week. But when autumn set in, we got rained out of the teepee, learned firsthand why local tribes don't use teepees, they use longhouses. Okay. So we then built a cabin nearby where we lived for a couple of years, and we got married in 1979. And I quit my job in Seattle after the bridge went down because the commute got really bad. It was awful. So in 1980, our living circumstances changed, and we moved to an apartment in Sequim. And at this time, I started an art and design business with a friend who was a calligrapher. And thus began a series of experiences that has culminated in a degree from the School of Learning Things the Hard Way. So that was the first incarnation of my business. I started in Sequim, and looking back, I would say my 2 most valuable business assets have been ignorance and tenacity. As an example of being completely ignorant about how to run a business, it never occurred to me to wonder if there was a market for my services in this rural area. I just assumed everything would be fine because I looked in the phone book and saw that there were no graphic designers listed. Oh boy, I thought, I will have no competition. It didn't cross my mind that the reason there were no other designers in the area was because there was no market for graphic design. They don't teach you things like that in art school. So my friend and I blithely went about finding a location, and we worked on coming up with a name. We rented a studio space on Bill Street in Sequim, and we decided to name ourselves, wait for it, Anaglyph Art Services. We found the word anaglyph in the dictionary, and it means an image formed by combining 2 points of view. So we thought that was perfect. We would combine each of our points of view in the work we did, and so off we went. So my first big hard knocks lesson came after we opened, and I went into my new studio and I sat down at my new workstation and I had all my tools set up and my work area all arranged. And then what? There was nothing on my desk. I thought, this is really dorky. Where's my work? I had nothing to do. And at that point, I realized I was so used to being an employee where someone else gives you work to do that it hadn't crossed my mind until then that finding work was now my job. So of course, panic naturally set in, followed by a long slog learning how to do client development. And it also didn't occur to me that maybe this was a bad idea and maybe I should do something else. So the attribute of tenacity came in handy as I kept at it. So needless to say, the first several years were pretty lean, but I learned as I went and the business grew. So then the second incarnation of my business was moving to Port Angeles. Things became easier over time. Bill had started his own business doing woodworking and we were making progress. I had our daughter in 1987 and we began planning to build a house with workspace areas for both our businesses in the Port Angeles area, and then moved there. So my friend had left Anaglyph in 1984, and I carried on with the name because I thought it could stand for combining the 2 points of view of me and my clients. And I never thought about whether the name might be a problem, even though no one knew what it meant, no one could spell it, and not very many people could pronounce it. And then one day I got a phone call inquiring about my services, and on the other end of the line, a quavering little old lady voice said, "Hello, is this Analgram?" Oh, shit. Whoops. Oh my God. So in that moment, this is a true story. I learned my second big business lesson, which is naming is a big deal. Your business name needs to be clear before it's clever or cute. And so of course I changed it immediately to Laurel Black Graphic Design, which is here's who I am and here's what I do. No confusion. What you see is what you get. And since we were moving to Port Angeles, I had to get a new phone and address anyway, so the timing was good. So business and life evolved. While we were building the house, we moved in and lived with my mother-in-law for 2 years, which is a whole nother story, which I will spare you. We moved in with a potty training 2-year-old. That was fun. Anyway, we moved into our new house the second it was barely habitable, which was in 1991. There were no interior doors and no regular kitchen. There was a hot plate and a fridge, but no sink. We did have indoor plumbing, which was an improvement over the teepee in the cabin. So our next dilemma was, how are we going to get the house done? If Bill was working on his business, he wasn't finishing the house. If he was working on the house, he wasn't making any money, which we needed to finish the house. However, we both had operational workspaces, and over the next few years, things gradually improved as we developed our businesses. So tenacity was still my friend. Then in 1992, I was finally forced to realize that I needed to get with computers and start using one for my business. I had been trained in the old school techniques of graphic production, which means the light table, which I still have, the triangles and T-squares, the drafting pens, the waxer. I lost my waxer. It's in here somewhere. I don't know where it is. Anyway, I'd been doing it for a long time and I was pretty good at it. So I was not happy to find out that I was expected to spend several $1,000s, which I didn't have, to learn how to do something I already knew how to do just fine all over again in a foreign language at my own expense. But computers were the way the profession was going, and my choices were either to get with the program or go back to waiting tables. Totally up to me. So that was my third big lesson. The universe doesn't care if you don't want to evolve. It can get along just fine without you. Okay, good to know. Fortunately, my cousins in Portland set me up with some equipment they no longer needed, and so I was able to make the switch. Then in early January of 1996, the unthinkable struck. Bill suddenly suffered a previously undiagnosed cerebral aneurysm and it ruptured, and he died a week and a half later. It was horrible and hard, but my 8-year-old daughter and I were very well taken care of by our family, our friends, and the entire community here, which was overwhelming and my fourth big lesson. This is where I'm going to spend the rest of my life. The incredible support we received left me with everlasting gratitude and love for this community. It is an amazing place to call home, and all of you know that because you're all part of why that is. So, more evolving. Fortunately, the insurance money enabled me to get the house finished, and work continued to increase, which was good because I was now a single mother. And I had begun to spend time with Joe, who's my husband now, but it would be several years before we got married, and I was very focused on making sure my daughter was provided for. So being self-employed and working from a home office really helped me figure out how to juggle things, and I had a lot of help from friends. After a year of a lot of adjustments, I realized I had a great space where Bill's wood shop used to be on the ground floor. This is a 3-story house. Some of you are familiar with it, so you know it's a little different. Anyway, I had the entire floor remodeled into an office for me. And around this time, I shortened my name to Laurel Black Design. And then I had my fifth big lesson, which is how crucial presentation is. I got an inquiry from a person who was newly arrived from the city and needed business materials for her new enterprise. And she made an appointment to meet me at my office. I will never forget her face when she walked into the foyer. She had clearly assumed that I was some little housewife working off her kitchen table, and she was flabbergasted to find herself in a very nice professional setting, complete with conference room. And her manner towards me changed rather abruptly. I then realized, thinking about it later, that this is another big lesson. Everything about your business sends a message. How you talk on the phone, how you do meetings, how you dress, what your workplace looks like and how it functions, how you shake hands when we get to do that again, whether you return calls and emails promptly, etc. This all adds up to what we now call branding, which can be defined as the result of all the many ways your audience experiences your business and what the sum total of that, how that positions your business and your client in your audience's mind. So basically, branding is how your marketing perceives you. And branding should be managed and intentional, but it often is not. Much of the time, it is just the accumulation of a bunch of random assumptions and observations that others, not yet, talk about random. Much of the time, it is just the accumulation of a bunch of random assumptions and observations that others make about an organization. This haphazard bunch of impressions is usually a mess, and it often results in negative marketing. So one of the main things I do is I help businesses and organizations develop their branding intentionally. That way you have some control over it. I had to do it for myself, and that too was a bit of a slog. It's much easier to do it for someone else. So since markets constantly evolve, branding is an ongoing task, which is where the slog comes. It's not really a slog. I really like doing this stuff. I've redone my visual branding several times as my work and offerings changed, including recently. Since the mid-90s, I've been asked more and more to not only do visual design, but also develop the messaging and content that the design supports. And that comes under the umbrella of communications. So in early 2019, I decided to change my name to Laurel Black Communications and Design. I'd been doing quite a bit of communications work for the port and other clients, so it was a natural evolution. I updated my logo and my website, and so far it's been working out very well. And here's where you get to see how my visual branding evolved. So Whoops. That was fast. Okay. Anyway, yeah, the one that's down in the lower right is the one I'm currently using. And it was really interesting for me to see this evolution. And now I lost my narrative. So let's see, what am I doing here? View options, just a second. Exit full screen. There we go. Okay, so anyway, I now explain what I do for clients by saying that I combine words and images to help them express their value to their markets. And I find this fascinating. I have come to believe that design and communications, what design and communications really do is behavior modification. So putting words and images together to inspire audiences to buy a product or service is really what it comes down to. And buying is a behavior, or if the client's a nonprofit, the goal is to support their cause, or if they're running for office, vote for them. It's all about persuading someone to buy into your cause or your project or your philosophy or your services or your product. It is all about inspiring the actions that you want your audience to take. And in order to do that, you need to be clear about what's in it for them. This has its basis in human behavior and how we make choices. And that's incredibly interesting. The old saying in marketing is people buy on emotion and justify with logic. And personally, I think that's how nearly all decisions are made. And the emotional part is usually unconscious. That is why imagery combined with words is so powerful if done well. And this, as an ex-art major, something I've thought about quite a bit. This is also why the practices of art and design get confused. They employ many of the same tools and processes, but they are completely different in purpose. One of the icons of art and design, Milton Glaser, said that the function of art is to intensify one's perception of reality and create new languages of meaning, but the function of design is to communicate, and for that we must use known symbols. So what that means in practice is creating art is primarily concerned with self-expression, and design is about putting your abilities and tools of creating imagery at the service of your client. That's why it's considered a professional service. These are two totally different purposes. So it's important to understand that a logo is not a pretty little graphic that makes your business card look nice. It is fundamentally a tool with a specific job, which is to convey your desire to your desired audience, what your enterprise is about, in a way that visually expresses that. So to do that effectively, you have to be very clear about what your business does, what the value of that is, and to whom you're offering it. In any form of communication, whether it's visual or verbal, the first two questions that need to be answered are, what is the desired outcome for this project? And then, who is the project aimed at? Who is your audience? And I also think that the development of all communication and marketing materials should be to create tools that perform specific tasks. And the answers to those two basic questions are the basis for everything that follows. And yet it happens a lot that these issues are not considered, even though they're absolutely vital to success. I remember a client years ago who came to me and said, I just started my business and I need a brochure. Okay, I can do that. To begin, I'd like to ask what you need a brochure to do for you. And he looked kind of confused and said, well, I need a brochure because I'm a business and all businesses have brochures. On this day and age, it would have been websites. So of course, that was not a useful answer. If you have a brochure, a website, or any other informational piece, just because that's what businesses do, you will end up with the most expensive tool in the world, which is the one that doesn't work. I have had many outstanding clients with whom I work. Some of you are in the audience. Thank you. And I like to work with my clients on a team basis. And together, I've been on some great teams, and together we've produced some great work. And I think that's why I'm glad I moved away from fine art and into design and communications. I'm naturally curious. Some of you would say nosy, but okay, I'll take it. Other people's stories endlessly fascinate me, and I love to learn about what other people care about and how I can help them accomplish that. I really love my work, even with all the weird and sometimes awful things that have happened in my life, like they do for everybody. I feel very fortunate. This community has been a great place to raise my kid, run my business, and live among some really fine people. So that's kind of it. And if you have any questions, I may or may not take them depending on what they are.
Laurel, I've got a question. So I know that you do a lot of
I can't hear you.
For political campaigns.
Hey, Norm, I can't hear you.
Okay, try this again. Is it any better?
Yeah.
Okay. I know that you do a lot of graphic work for political signs for various candidates. And I'm curious, I don't care how you vote or who you support, but like, would you do a sign for opposing candidates in the same race, or do you always have to pick one over the other?
I would never do work for both candidates in the same race. I think that would be a conflict of interest. And I've been fortunate to work for some very fine candidates. I tend to view elections as a hiring process, and I don't look at it as a partisan exercise, and that's partly because all of my campaigns have been local for the most part, and I have learned that local governments are the ones that affect our lives most directly on a daily basis, and it's important to have competent people in there. So I feel that the people I have helped with their campaigns fall into that category. And even though I've had some losses, that's the way politics works. And some of you may have looked at that that ABC clip when they came and interviewed our commissioners that John sent around. Thank you, John. It was very revealing to me, and I think emblematic of where we live, that our county commission has a Republican, a Democrat, and an independent. They work well together, they respect each other, and they get stuff done. And we're very fortunate for that.
Thanks.
Laurel, can you hear me?
Who is it?
Vivian.
Oh, hi, Viv. Yeah, I know. I'm sending it in later today. I got to get an approval on it.
I know. I want to say kudos to you, Laurel, because together we work together and work with a lot of campaigns, a lot of businesses. And I said, we just work really, really good. And Laurel is just, you're amazing. You are amazing. You. And the quality of work you bring in, I bought many shoes. Thank you.
Oh, so, well, yeah. Back at you, girlfriend. And maybe things will transpire to where we can actually go somewhere wearing, 4-inch spikes or something.
Yes. Yeah. Although thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great job. Great work. Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, Laurel, I've got a question for you. Out of all your projects that you've done throughout your career, I'd like to know what you prize as your, what you choose as your most, your biggest, most your greatest prize.
Well, there's more than one, obviously. I'm very proud that the Olympic Medical Center logo is still being used and is still relevant. It doesn't look all that, usually a logo that's 20 years old will start looking dated, but for some reason that one hasn't. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the work I've done for the port. And currently, I'm also proud of the work I'm doing for the county with all of the COVID communications materials. I've had so many amazing clients that have taught me so much. I wasn't prepared for this question. Sorry.
Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, well, if anybody wants to see some of the entities I worked for, my website is laurelblack.com. It's real simple, a simple name, not like my first one. And under the work tab, there's a section for communications work and a section for design work. And you can see some of, I consider that my best work.
And you've also won a couple of national awards that you're so modest about.
Well, sheesh.
And,
yeah, I've pretty much won one every year since I think 1992, but I can't remember. I think 96 was a rough year for me, and I don't remember a lot of it. So I don't know what happened then, but I've had pretty good recognition, and I'm grateful for it. It has been helpful. One of the things that helps with getting awards like that is there's no professional certifications for design. Anybody can say, hey, I'm a designer, and that's all it takes. So to have recognition like that really helps. Oh, yeah, there it is. Yeah, there's some, oh, look, that guy retired. Oh, well. Anyway, yeah, most of these on the logo sites have won awards, and that's kind of cool.
One of the cool things, Laurel, is I have gone to your site in the course of working with you and learned an incredible amount about not only what you do, but the whole industry of design and design versus art. So yeah, I recommend anybody to go to the site. It's great.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I do. You've got the illustration page up there, and those are all original illustrations that I've done over the years. And I don't do so much of that now, but I certainly could. I like doing it all.
Thank you very much, Laurel. You're a wonderful person, a great member of our club here.
Thank you.
We're blessed to have you with us. So
thank you.
14 years is worth the waiting for that.
Oh, well, yeah, there was more to talk about. I kind of went over the time. I'm sorry if people were inconvenienced, but
you don't see many people dropping off. So
oh, really? Oh, yeah. Huh. Okay, well, maybe they were waiting for Doc to wake up and tell a joke.
He's asleep.
One of the ones we lost. So
yeah. Well, thank you for listening to my story, and I really appreciate this club. I remember when I couldn't be in any service clubs as a single mom because I had to get my kid to school, or more importantly, get her to get up in the first place. And I thought, you know, when she's driving, I'm gonna get back into being in a service club. And I remember thinking, I think the funnest club, and by the way, funnest is a word, the funnest one would be Nor'Wester Rotary, because they look like the most active and least stodgy of all of them. And lo and behold, it was Norm who recruited me. And I thought, what a lucky break, right on the dot, right when Caitlin could drive herself to school without me having a heart attack. Norm said, hey, how would you like to join our Rotary Club? And I was like, yes. And so I think that was in 2003 or 2004. I can't remember. It was back in the dark ages.
Well, thank you very much, Laura. That was wonderful. I want to thank all of you for joining this week and everything.